Chairman, our next witness is witness 367. It's at page 456 of your bundle. It's part of the supplement.
Sorry, what page was that?
It is at page 456 of the supplement. If you have the old version, it's page 450.
I found it, thank you.
Good afternoon.
سلام و وقت شما بخیر.
Hello and good afternoon.
سلام و وقت شما بخیر. صدای من رو نمیدونم.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Swear you in.
Mr. Witness, thank you for agreeing to testify. Could you repeat after me, please? I solemnly declare that I will speak the truth.
من
I solemnly declare to tell the truth,
The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. There'll be questions now from counsel, followed by questions from the panel.
The witness, a middle-aged man, was an employee of a construction company belonging to IRGC. He's expert in installation. He was asked to join the military security forces to suppress the demonstrators during the November 2019. Against his objections, they kitted him with a helmet and a baton. He witnessed how the security forces attacked the demonstrators. He was later dismissed from his job and now resides in Switzerland. Mr. Witness, many thanks for your appearing as a witness. Your evidence had been received by the tribunal, and we thank you very much. Would you please very briefly state what you saw during the November 2019?
بله. ضمن از تشکر از
I would like to thank the tribunal and also the council for organizing this gathering. I was a contractor, as you mentioned, of Khatam al-Anbiya, which is one of the projects of IRGC. Khatam al-Anbiya carries out some development projects in the country. As an engineer employee, I was working there. I was about 42, 43 at the time. I'm a middle-aged individual. I couldn't do what I was asked to do. The gentleman who asked me to help as a supportive force, I said, first of all, I am against what you're asking me to do. Not only me, but my colleagues, many of them were against such actions. If there is a protest, you should either convince them or you should give them what they deserve. They are our fellow countrymen. They are poor people, and this is a shock for them. And that shock is difficult for everyone, both the ones who are a bit better off and the ones who are a bit less off. And also whether the increase in the petrol prices was good or bad, I don't want to say anything, but shooting people was wrong in any way. And therefore, we were against any type of similar reaction against people. They did not listen to us. They had ideological beliefs. They wanted to save the establishment. They were saying that we are the forces of the establishment and we should help the establishment in every way. We are the soldiers of the establishment. So they sent a bus. They prepared a bus to take me and my colleagues. This happened on Sunday. They put us on a bus and took us to a place where the protests was taking place in Sarasiab and Malard and Shahryar, close to Tehran. I don't know about the streets. It was a street called Vali Asr in Shahryar. That's where we were taken. Is it enough, or do you want me to explain further? Please explain further. Afterwards, we received a briefing session for an hour or two. They said you don't need to get into clashes with people. If the leaders got into clashes, then you may also get involved. Just try to convince people verbally. The leader was doing all this, of course, and we were just following him. And if the people did not go, they were the ones who tried to take action. We were just there as a part of people to show that the numbers are increased. At the beginning, the violence increased. At first, batons were used, and then stones were thrown by people, and this side started attacking. There were shootings in the air at the beginning, and then shooting directly to the people. I'm not familiar with the war weapons, therefore I cannot say what type of weapons were being used, but they were war weapons. The shell casings show that. And as you can see in many of the video footage, and which are also available on the internet, people were being shot directly with military weapon. We've got an example, a saying in Persian, we say that sun has been the reason for sun. So at that time, you can easily see what has gone on based on the video footage which you can see in the social media. But anyway, I thought that as a witness, I may be able to take a very small step in revealing the nature of this regime.
Security forces.
Shooting did take place. There were individuals who were shot. People used to pick them up, lift them up, and take them with whatever means possible, motorbike or a vehicle, car, or just pull the individual and take him away. So the ones who were shot were being moved away. Since I was standing among the bad people, and I was far from people. Therefore, I cannot exactly say whether the people who were shot did die or not, but I could see that they were shot. This is undeniable.
Because you did not follow the instructions on that day.
When the protest became really dire, I was really affected adversely. I am peaceful and I'm against any type of conflict. And when I saw that the situation was getting really out of hand and people are being shot, me and a number of my colleagues left the place and we just threw what we were given as helmet and the others in a semi-finished building, and we left the place. And our leader, our supervisor, saw us there, and he saw that we had thrown our items away. Then we got a car and we went back home. The following day, of course, I was a contractor. My colleagues were, in fact, semi-official employees. We were all disciplined, and I was sacked, dismissed the same day, Monday. And my colleagues, based on the contacts I had with them, and I used to talk with them and I used to hear, one of them was taken to court. A number of others were also suspended from work. It took a year for me to get my redundancy, and that was with a lot of follow-up, but my colleagues did not have an easy path to take because of the position that they had at work.
Were not members of the military forces. You were just an employee of a construction company.
بله.
Yes. Khatam al-Anbiya is in fact the development, the engineering department of the IRGC. So it is not military headquarters, it's a development headquarters. But since they needed forces, maybe about 30 of the individuals from the projects we were working on, from among the laborers, the accountants, the employees of the engineering office, were all taken so that they would show that they are bigger in number. Anyway, all my friends and colleagues were against this. It is true that we were working for the IRGC, but this was forcefully accepted because there is no other job to do, and whatever job opportunity you get, you just accept. That's why I had accepted it.
Military forces or members of the Revolutionary Guards. What would be the charge?
No.
What would be
No.
the charge against your friends who refused to cooperate with the military people?
ببینید
said that
وقتی
they were
شما کارمند
sentenced.
رسمی میشید
When you become an official employee, you will also get some sort of military ranking based on what you do. But that is not because of the military activities that you carry out, but it's just because you're an employee of the IRGC. And whatever law rules for the military personnel who hold guns would also be applicable to you. You cannot just say that I will not follow orders. The orders may be of anything. They might ask you to kill an individual or anything else. You're an official employee of the IRGC, so you have to follow orders, whatever order is being given to you. You might be a driver, a chef, or whatever, but you have to follow orders.
Questions for you.
Thank you, witness. I just have a few questions. You
خدمت شماست.
you indicated that the forces were ordered to flood the streets. Who gave that order? Can you just be a little more precise with who gave that order?
ببینید از یک
Well, the order had come from an upper level. The people in the IRGC from a level above are military personnel, and they are either from the intelligence department or they are approved by the intelligence department. So they are military personnel. And according to the organizational chart, they've got leaders, and their leaders would issue orders, and they have to put it into practice. And that's how we became aware of such an order. So sometimes there are protests for the victory of the Islamic Republic or for the Quds Day. They use these forces. If we don't take part in such protests, then next time we won't have any salary. They will easily dismiss us. Well, many people may have to go and participate in such demonstrations than to follow orders. But if they order to kill people, well, I would have gone for bank robbery.
You also say in your statement that assault and battery was their second step. Was this something that was told as part of the initial order? So when the instructions were given to flood the streets, was it already said, well, as your second step, assault and battery?
ظاهراً
Apparently, yes. At the first stage, they were just warning people and asking them to scatter, maybe with a very bad language, or bad literature, but they were asking people to scatter at the beginning. But then the unrest aggravated, and a larger number of people gathered on the streets, and the number of the people were increasing as time passed. Apparently, the order was that they should take military action against them.
And you also gave evidence that there were snipers who were firing to kill, so they were aiming with a view to killing people. Is that right?
در بالای
Above one or two of the administrative buildings, I saw snipers. I could see their guns. They had long barrels. They had cameras on their guns, rifles. It was clear that they had learned how to use those guns. Even the sound of the weapons and the way they behaved showed that they were quite trained in that respect. You couldn't see where they were hitting. The buildings are high, but apparently they were shooting towards people.
And were you aware, either from what you saw or from what you were told, whether the snipers were seeking out specific people or were they killing at random?
I don't know. I cannot exactly say whether they were targeting specific individuals or just randomly they shot. Maybe they were briefed that they should shoot the leaders, maybe the weak individuals, maybe the ones who were in the front. I'm not specialized in anti-riot, but it was clear that they were shooting at people.
It's fine. You also mentioned in your statement SEPA ambulances for SEPA people. Do you recall that in your statement?
Yes, I do. There were a large number of ambulances, maybe 6 or 7 of the ambulances which I saw were there. First, I thought that these ambulances are for the injured and those who were shot. But what we could see was that if in the clashes, people threw stones, something happened, or there was a trivial clash, they were, or if there was a fire or anything, they used the IRGC employees to transfer their own wounded. So that ambulance was used for the IRGC wounded individuals and not for people.
Were these ambulances which were ordinarily used for anyone? So anyone who was injured or, let's say, had a heart attack, they would be used in the town or city to transport people to the hospital? The same ambulances?
آمبولانس خود
No, the ambulances belonged to IRGC. They had the emblem of IRGC. Probably they belong to the IRGC hospitals. IRGC has its own hospitals, its own medical equipment and facilities.
And also in your statement, you said that you saw the special guards and plainclothes officers break the glass of banks and people's shops. Is that right?
بله
Yes. What I did not see people burn any bank. I saw maybe they had thrown some stones to the bank, but I never saw them burn any banks. But the supermarket store was open and someone had gone to work, and I saw that these individuals threw stones, they broke the windows, and they attacked cars. Well, the poor people live there, so maybe they, if their car windscreen is broken, then that would be a huge damage for those poor people. The shops, some of them were closed, and they broke their front windows, so they were trying to somehow destroy the property, while this was not done by ordinary people.
What made you believe that this was the special guards or plainclothes officers who were carrying out this vandalism?
ببینید اون خیابون
Balias Street is a street full of shops. It's a high street with a lot of shops. The shops were mostly closed. Even those that were open were being somehow damaged by the plainclothes officers. When people were attacked, they went to houses or into the shops, and they, on the other side, the forces tried to break the windows and they damaged the shops. People never damage each other's property because they are of the same type. And they are all suffering together economically, socially speaking, so they won't harm each other. But I saw with my own eyes that the plainclothes officers time and time again damaged people's properties and cars, and they had no fear in doing so.
I just have one more question, and it relates to your statement where you say that you were condemned at your job for saying that you were not in favor of violence, and you were told, I think by your boss, that this was treason against the supreme leader. Did I understand that correctly?
بله
Yes, completely, yes.
Are
در
you
واقع شما هر حرفی رو غیر
In effect, whatever you say, which is in variance with what they order you, they say you're against the system. You are labeled, you are a dissident, you are a treacherous person, you are a military soldier, and you're duty-bound to obey it. Personal belief doesn't mean anything in this system.
Are you able to explain in any more detail why you think your boss, your employer, drew a parallel between your condemnation of violence and treason against the leader? Did the leader call specifically for violence, is the question.
نه
The leader issued an order for people to be suppressed, cracked down on. He ordered this to his forces. We were part of the forces, either contractual or otherwise. If you enter one of these units, you accept, in effect, that you are a member of this system. You are a soldier. If you're a soldier, you have to obey the commander. It doesn't matter how you are clad, what your uniform is. From their perspective, you are a soldier. And if you disobey, very well, it's clear what will happen to him.
What I'm suggesting is you disobeyed by failing to carry out violence? Is that your understanding?
بله کامل
Yes, completely, yes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. I just have one clarification question. After the shooting that you described, you said that the bodies were being moved away. Do you know by whom they were being moved away?
ببینید من نگفتم
I didn't say bodies. I said those who had been shot. It could be that they were wounded and still alive, but they could be also dead. The distance, the range was very short. It was only 100 meters. And that's to say that's what happens, that when the order comes to shoot people, they stand at a distance. So when they would shoot, the person would fall down. From that distance, I wouldn't know whether he was alive, dead, where he was shot in the stomach, in the head, in the leg. I wouldn't know. But it was the people who would try to assist the one who had been shot. Perhaps the person was alive, perhaps he was dead. They just wanted to take that person away from the melee. I don't know whether they took him to the hospital or elsewhere. I am just telling you in the moment what happened. But those who were shot were taken away from the place of the struggle by the people.
by the protest, by other
بله
protesters.
بحث مردم بله بله مردم.
Yes, the people, yes.
Justice Yacoub.
Thank you very much. What exactly was your work in Khatam al-Abya?
البته
This is a rather dangerous question because it could identify me, and my family is in Tehran, and once my brother went through a rough patch, I was a kind of consultant, let's put it that way.
Well, let me tell you what I'm after, and you can tell me whether you can help me. If you were involved in the computer section, and you had information of how the place worked and how messages were sent and what messages said, and if you had access to those things, you might be able to help me. Otherwise, I'm not really interested to know exactly what you are doing. So that's the only reason why I want a general idea.
نه متاسفانه
No, unfortunately, I cannot help you at all with this. I was working completely differently. I was a consultant in installations, and I was doing construction. It was completely different.
You're a hardware guy, basically.
با بتون لوله
Yes, with the concrete, reinforced concrete pipes, etc.
Okay, no, I understand that. What is the meaning of Khatam ul-Abya? Because I thought my feeling was that Khatam meant
معنی
end.
لغویش یا
Yeah. Sorry? Yes.
No, I was telling the witness to wait until you finish your question, Judge. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I thought Khatam meant end, and I was just wondering what Khatam al-Abya means as an army structure.
Khatam al-Anbiya means the last prophet, and this is a title that is given to Prophet Muhammad in Iran. The seal of the prophets.
The name of that division of the army was named after the Prophet Muhammad. Is that right?
بله
Yes. Yes, completely, yes.
Would it be true to say that every structure in the army has some kind of religious significance?
Not only it has religious and ideological significance, but also the chief, the main reason that they would let you enter a military structure is your obedience to that religion or ideology. In Iran, you will never find other than that. If you have the best engineer in the world from NASA, you bring him there, and the only thing is that he's not a Muslim, or even if he's a Muslim and he does not believe in the ideology of the Islamic Republic, it's not possible at all that they would let them enter a military structure and work there. For example, in the city council of the city of Yazd, they had a very, very good person, wise, very good, but he was a Zoroastrian, so they dismissed him.
Okay. Now, when they applied pressure on you, they said, well, if you didn't agree, you are the munafiqeen, which is put in your statement as meaning hypocrite. My sense is that it means an unbeliever or traitor or something. So can you tell me what you think is the proper meaning of munafiqeen?
دقیقا
The second thing that you say, the second definition is correct. That's to say, when you say munafiq, it means that you don't believe in the system.
And is non-belief in the system equated to non-belief in the Prophet Muhammad and God?
هیچ ربطی به این دو تا نداره.
No, it has nothing to do with those two. And if these people are representatives of God on earth, I'd rather be an atheist. Not only these people are not the exponents of God on earth or in Iran, the religion of God for them is the place to earn a living, to embezzle, to steal in the country.
I'm not trying to work out your beliefs at the moment. Do they believe that they are the representatives of the Lord Allah Pak on earth?
بله.
Yes, they do. The gentlemen, perhaps they even think that they are higher than God. Sorry to say that. They think perhaps God is the representative of Mr. Khamenei.
Believe that a non-belief in them is equal to a non-belief in God.
کاملا.
Yes, completely. Precisely.
Now, I'm going to ask you a personal question, but I'm asking it because I want to try and understand the significance of the tripling of the petrol price. More or less, and I know it may disclose your identity and so on, but just try and be careful about that. Bear in mind the purpose of my question. More or less, how much did you earn? More or less.
Sorry, more or less what?
How much did you earn? How much money did you earn every month, your salary?
من حقوقم
My salary would be what the middle class would earn. I was living rather comfortably, it was all right, and perhaps me, typically, would not be so shocked with the increase of the price of petrol, because I was not somebody who would be in the car going and coming all the time. But you must not think that the increase in the price of petrol would stop there. An increase in the price of petrol would lead to the increase in the price of everything else. Every other item would be increased threefold, and therefore it would affect everybody's lives. And not only that, but I think even if there were an increase in the price of petrol, it should have been done gradually, because you have a lot of oil in Iran. So there was no reason for it to be raised threefold. I am not a sociologist, it's only my personal view, but as somebody who was living there, I think if they wanted to increase the price of petrol, it should have been done with gradual increments, gradually, and I think what they did was wrong, and I think the reason why they wanted to do was that Mr. Rouhani wanted to ingratiate himself and say, yes, I am the one who is controlling the prices. Ahmadinejad was bad, I am good. But this went overboard because the other one had abandoned all the prices and everything had increased. But if Mr. Rouhani had devised something wise and wisely had done it, this would not have happened. And his advisors were not giving him good advice, and it has happened always in the history of Iran. If it had been done wisely, it would have been gradual, people would have been more accepting of it, and the new price would have found its place, and I don't think anything like this would have happened. That's my personal view.
In our country, and the petrol price doubled gradually over a period of 5 years, but that too was very hard. But leaving that aside, what is the more or less, forget about your salary now, what range would a middle class salary be from more or less what to more or less what, somewhere there? I'm not interested in personal information about you, if you know what I mean.
At that point in time, I was paid 6,500,000 2 months.
Okay, that's fine.
No, 6.5 million every month.
$500,000 every month. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Yes, 6.5 million every month. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So what did you think of the government? I understand that you were not particularly supportive even when you joined the army, because you said you joined because you needed a job, right? Does that mean that you objected to government even then?
Yes, not only I objected to the government then, but even when they shot down the Ukrainian plane, I objected. When Mr. Mousavi, through deceit, was deprived of his presidency, I objected. There should be no problem if you object, and if you are working in a particular unit, it doesn't mean that you should not object to them. Every Iranian, like Iran, but they also like Russia, Afghanistan, Israel, Palestine. We are peace-loving people, and that's the way our mindset is. And this regime is not the representative of the people. You should look at the statistics of the events of the election that led to Mr. Raisi being the president. 10% only participated in the elections. They say 30%, but I say 10%. And even the 10% included the employees of the government, etc., who had to vote for him. But it shows that they are not the representatives of the people. Okay, you stay in power because you have your guns, and everybody who talks against them, they are going to kill them. Reuters said that 1,500 people died. They said 300 people, and I say one person, even one person, why should he be killed? Why? Because somebody else has made a mistake, because Mr. Rouhani, the president, is making mistakes, because the experts have made a mistake to increase the price so fast all of a sudden. Why? Why even one person should be killed? 200 people died. Was there a war? Why should they kill? It is a very high number. You look at the statistics for the war in Syria. Daily, a lot less people die there than this.
Were you asked to do anything that you considered completely wrong and unlawful and immoral during the course of these processes? And I'd like you, because when I listen to your evidence, I'm not too sure. So can you think about it and say whether, in your view, you were asked to do anything that was immoral and completely wrong?
You see, it's completely so, because there is perhaps no difference between you taking a baton and you beat somebody up, and that person has done nothing or has only protested, either rightfully or wrongly. It's wrong. It's wrong.
I'm sorry, can we just get ourselves right? Otherwise, it will take a long time. I read your statement to mean that you said that they said you should defend yourself, which is not necessarily wrong. So I'm trying to understand, did they go a little further and say, you must, using your baton to defend yourself is one thing, using your baton to aggressively give somebody a hiding is another thing. And that's what I'm trying to work out. What were you actually asked to do?
You see, they say that Khamenei is God. That's to say, but I'm saying it simply. And when Khamenei says that the crowds, the protesters should be finished off, should be wrapped up, and this order goes to everybody, to the police force, to the parliament, to the other forces, but then how do you do it? There are protesters on the street He's protesting. He doesn't go back home. And there is an order from higher up to finish it off. Well, they beat them with the baton on the head. They shoot them so that to finish it off. This is the order. This is a wrong order. And there are people like me with a conscience, with honest people, with honor, who rejected it. I don't know what has happened other places, and I'm not going to name anybody that later on problem is created for them. But what I want to say is that those who shot, they were shooting people who were just protesting, doing nothing else. They were beating them up because of protesting. And where is it right? Where in the world you would find something like this and call it right?
I understand the inference that you draw, and I agree with your inference completely. I'm interested in something more. Did they go any further than that? Were you specifically told to do anything wrong? Or was that sort of just implied and left there? Because you see, sophisticated armies usually just imply things and leave it there. Unsophisticated ones go a little bit further and push the people a little bit more.
Well, they had said that if people did not scatter, just beat them. They even showed us how to use the baton. They told us and showed us where to hit, what to do. First, they said that allow the leaders who had been trained to do the job. And they were telling us that we should not let our weapons be taken by the people, but then how the people should be beaten and hit. We were also told that this is how you should hit the people and beat the people.
Whatever the leaders did, whether you thought they were right or wrong, your instructions were to follow their lead and do what they did.
Yes, exactly.
Now I do understand that a little bit better, and I understand your objection. I may just have one more question. Give me a minute. Oh, yes. All of you, from you were in the structural side, you were doing structural work, and there were a number of you, 30 odd of you, who were doing structural work, who went out in the vehicle to the protest, as I understand you. Now, I'm trying to understand, were all of you together as a group, or were you interspersed with the others?
There were a number of leaders, and we were divided among those leaders. Every 4 of us were given to one leader, and that leader was guiding the 4 or 5 individuals behind him.
Asking you, so all 4 of you behind that leader were from the structural division, but was there anybody in your group which was not part of the structural division, or did they keep the soldiers and all those? Sorry?
A leader had a number of soldiers and trained personnel. We were just there as extras, supporting them. So a team was a leader, a number of soldiers, and a number of extras, which were us.
So in your team, for example, how many soldiers were there and how many of you were there, more or less?
Almost 3 to 4 soldiers and 3 or 4 of us. It wasn't quite regular. And so the team was altogether about 10, 12, and we were led towards people. And we were supposed to tell people on the pavement to scatter, disperse, and if they did resist, then we could have beaten, the groups would have beaten the people, or if they resisted, they would have arrested them, taken to the buses, and then taken to the detention center.
Okay, so there are 12 of you, let's say, in a group, more or less, with 4 from here, 4 from there, and 4 from somewhere else. Okay, but now,
Between 10 and 12.
Yeah, 10 and 12, that's fine. But I want to know, would the 4 of you have been together in that group, or were you mixed up with that group in a way? Were they all mixed up? I hope you follow my question, yeah.
As I said, we had a leader who was usually from the military personnel. He was quite trained. He had a number of soldiers, and there were a number of people from the construction department. There was a team of 12. All the team worked together. The teams were being formed in such a format, and they were sent to the streets.
All right. And how did you normally dress for work?
Suit, if it is cold, and if it is hot, just a shirt and the trousers.
In November, how would you normally dress, or in Aban?
I usually had an autumn overcoat.
Do you think that at that time, most of the people there had some sort of overcoats on, most of the ordinary people?
Almost, yes. But on that day, I remember it was a bit colder.
How would the ordinary person looking at you would have thought of you? Would they have thought you were completely part of the army or the police? Or what impression would you have created?
Well, they would have considered that we are military because we had helmets, our faces were covered, we had a baton in our hands. Some had special clothes. We didn't receive special uniform, but there were some special uniforms that were distributed. They wanted to show that the number of the police officers was more than what it really was. So, in fact, it was a show of power.
Very much indeed. You've been very helpful.
No more questions from the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Witness.
I am grateful to you and all the ones who have taken efforts to hold this tribunal. I hope that we could overcome this cancerous gland as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Witness, for your evidence and answering all the questions that you could. We appreciate it, and we'll take everything you've said into account. Thank you.